By Elena Casas. Hi
Morning
there.
again, Tom.
Hi there. So we're starting by looking at Rupert Murdoch's bid for BSkyB, looking like it's all over.
Yes, I wish I had the British papers to show you, but our deliveries are a bit delayed today. But the Independent's headline this morning says Rupert on the run. The Telegraph says Gordon Brown takes his revenge. And The Guardian, let's call the whole thing off. Of course, they're all leading on Rupert Murdoch's decision to drop his bid for full control of BSkyB yesterday. The Guardian points out he now could face an order to appear before Parliament, a judicial inquiry into the behaviour of his newspapers, and a review by the regulator of whether he's a fit and proper person to own any part of Sky. Their editorial is titled "The Sky Falls In" on News International as a wave of public and political contempt is reshaping the landscape. They say just a couple of weeks ago no senior British politician would have dared contradict Rupert Murdoch, and yesterday they were lining up to do so. David Cameron, of course, they point out, is trying, they say unsuccessfully, to distance himself from News International, especially after that very strongly worded attack on his media policy by Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister, yesterday in the House of Commons, which the British press is very excited about. The Guardian says that as Prime Minister, we should point out that Gordon Brown was no keener to stand up to Rupert Murdoch than anybody else, but he is nevertheless on pretty firm ground when he criticises the way that News International has shaped the Tory party's media policy. The Guardian says they point out that their editor informed David Cameron of what they knew and were unable to publish at the time about Rupert Murdoch's News of the World's connections to criminals before the last election, and yet David Cameron appointed Andy Coulson, so they say there's still questions to answer.
And later dismissed him. Now, Murdoch's legal worries look like they're spreading from one side of the Atlantic to the other.
Yes, there's a report in the Washington Post today, which is actually based on something the British tabloid The Daily Mirror came out with yesterday, which is that the News of the World may well have apparently hacked into the phones of American 9/11 victims. There is no confirmation that they did this, but there's 4 senators, say the Washington Post, which are calling for a major inquiry, and that means that his ability to hold on to his American TV channels could potentially be questioned, because it also says in American law that anyone holding a TV channel should be a person of good character.
Right, well, let's see how that unfolds. But Murdoch, his journalists are not without their supporters, are they?
There's a great piece on US blog Gawker today titled "In Defence of Sleazy Journalism," and it puts an argument that quite a number of journalists have drawn attention to recently. They're worried that News International's misbehaviour might lead to wider regulation censoring the behaviour of journalists, and it will be transparency that loses out. The writer, John Cook, says that without a lot of highly questionable behaviour on the part of sordid hacks, the public wouldn't find out a lot of things that we do need to know. They say if journalists never paid sources, for example, we'd never have found out about MPs' expenses because that was paid for. And so the last thing Britain needs, he says, is more press regulation. The truly deplorable things that the News of the World did, like phone hacking, are already illegal.
Now, another big story that we're following here on France 24, those attacks on the financial capital Mumbai in India. How's the Indian press reacting to that?
Well, the Times of India's front page has a certain exasperation on it this morning. The lead headline is "Yet Again." They say it's still too soon to say, of course, who might have been responsible, but they do accuse India's intelligence authorities of negligence, saying that apparently the central national authorities had a warning of a possible attack, which they didn't communicate to the state authorities, and as a result, nothing was done to prevent it.
All right, and very quickly, the Tea Party, that's something the Independent's looking at.
Yes, well, actually, they're looking at a new advocacy group calling themselves the Tequila Party. Now, they're representing Hispanics in the US. They might have a funny name, but they do have some serious issues at stake. Hispanics, of course, are a huge demographic, and while they overwhelmingly vote Democrat, they're starting to get very disappointed and feel betrayed by the Obama government. The paper says he did promise an immigration reform that would allow, people living illegally in the US to have an easier path towards citizenship if they pay their taxes and so on. Of course, that's not happened, and his presidency has seen tougher and tougher immigration laws, like that famous one in Arizona. So this new group has been formed to try and get politicians to realise lots of Hispanics do have the vote, and having a really tough immigration policy isn't necessarily a winner.
All right, Elena Casas, thank you very much. Time now for a check of the top stories with